Hello and welcome to this virtual panel session from Foodservice Consultants Society International, FCSI, where we will be discussing the role of technology in institutional food service. My name is Tina Nielsen. I'm from Progressive Content and I'm the editor of FCSI's Foodservice Consultant magazine. This session is supported by Duke Manufacturing, and I'm happy to be joined by a panel of industry experts, including two hugely experienced food service consultants. I'd now like to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their areas of expertise and their experience. Tarah, can we start with you, please?
Sure. So my name is Tarah Schroeder. I'm an executive principal at Ricca Design Studios. We work on all different types of projects across the country, and I'm lucky that I tend to focus a little bit more on the institutional projects and education and higher ed and K through 12.
Thank you, Tarah. And you, Beth?
Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are. I am Beth Wallace, and I am the Executive Director for Food and Nutrition Services here at Jeffco Schools in Denver, Colorado. And my experience is just many, many years of being blessed with many new designs and remodels of kitchen projects that we've worked on in the K-12 industry.
Okay. Brett?
Yeah, I'm Brett Daniel out of Atlanta, Georgia with Camacho Associates. And we work on everything as well, like Tarah. So we have our hands in all of the projects and as well as laundry design. Been doing this now for about 15 years, and I am the project manager / BIM manager for Camacho.
Brilliant. Okay. And finally, LLoyd?
Hi, I'm LLoyd Hartsfield. I'm part of the Duke Manufacturing family. Also the president of CounterCraft. Been doing this for about 20 years and has been a part of a large initiative at Duke, adding technology into the serving systems platforms.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. So I think a nice place to start would probably be with you, Beth, if you can maybe set the scene for us and just outline some of the challenges that you see in food service operations at Jeffco Public Schools and how technology is being used to overcome those challenges.
Technology is a key aspect of our food service operations, and I'm going to start. And my vision of what technology is may not be everybody's vision of technology, but technology just for technology isn't always a saver on the end user. It has to be something that is beneficial to us, that saves us time. And so, we're looking for things that are flexible. One of the game changers, I think, in the last few years in my world is having the technology to have a piece of equipment go from hot, cold to frozen. And that is major flexibility for that end user operator. But additionally, that monitoring of our programs and what we're doing from a mobile standpoint is also just critical for us. And so a brief example is my manager of equipment and facilities can now monitor all of his refrigeration from his cell phone, from his mobile device. I bet he tells me at least once a week, Beth, do you realize we haven't lost a freezer this whole year? Do you realize we haven't lost a freezer this whole year? I'm like, no, Jerry, but now that you bring it up, yes, that's a great piece of technology that helps us. He gets alerts. He gets notifications when equipment is going down or even in potential of going down. So I think that technology is so critical to our industry, and anything that continues to provide us that type of service on a mobile device is just going to be where I see the future in operations going, particularly for very large operations. We have 150 sites here. So you can imagine, how critical that piece of technology is. One thing I think of, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but, being able to set a recipe on a piece of equipment to all 150 sites would just be amazing. And we don't have to push the staff out or put them out there to get things done.
Thank you very much, Beth. And Tarah, from the consultant's point of view, what are the challenges that you see within this sector and the technology that's being put forward to overcome those or to solve the problems?
So just building upon what Beth said, that the technology that we've really seen adopted across institutions have been ones that have solved issues. Everyone's talking about right now the challenges that there are with finding skilled labor, and there's a lot of openings available. What technology can help fill that gap. And so cashierless, we've seen adopted widely because then folks who maybe before had to you had to staff the entry points or the exit points. Now you can use those team members to actually be in the kitchen or be serving. Mobile apps, definitely with what Beth said, being able to look at menus, have order pay through mobile apps. So much of it really depends on the type of operation as well. For something, in higher ed, like an all you care to eat facility, they're actually looking a little bit more at back of house technology to see how maybe with the staff shortage that they have, that they can use robots or use, different pieces of equipment that can require less people to be able to prepare the food, to produce the food. Whereas at least what I've seen for retail is it definitely is much more front of the house technology. I agree with Beth. Technology isn't just robots, right? It's any type of solution that makes it easier for an operator to have a successful operation.
Excellent. Okay. Brett, do you have any observations to add? What are you seeing in your work with your clients?
So the problem with going third is they stole my answers. So to build on what Tarah and Beth said, absolutely agree with all of it. Technology has always been advancing, and the footprints of the kitchens have always been getting smaller and smaller. So the need to automate processes and things like that for flexibility and reduce labor has always been there. Well, all of a sudden we get hit by COVID and it completely compounded that need because, like everybody said, labor shortages right now. We were trying to eliminate some of the labor before, but now we're trying to get it back and we can't. So the technology has gotten much better, much quicker than it would have otherwise. Like everyone said, it helps the connectivity, it helps monitor, all kinds of things that employees were needed to do before, as far as going down for HACCP programs, having to keep that log. You don't have to do that anymore because we have automated systems that will keep track of all of that, doing all of that. Like Beth said, across however many hundreds of locations, you can monitor all of that in one spot, and that reduces significantly a lot of labor.
Okay, thank you, Brett. And Lloyd, from the manufacturing point of view, what kind of trends, both in the short term and the long term, do you see will be affecting the sector and your particular market segment?
Well, the group as a whole have all said the same thing. Any technology for technology's sake is not useful. It needs to make things easier and add value along the way. We were talking about a shortage of labor, and there is a shortage of labor, but there's even more so a shortage of experienced labor, skilled labor. So taking, in Beth's case, taking that information about the walk-in coolers and putting it in the hands of the expert, Jerry, at her organization, gives him the power of knowing what's going on, and he can monitor things from a remote location for 150 different sites. So from the serving perspective, where we're focusing on it at Duke right now, you may have 50 different appliances per location. So we can monitoring all of that and being able to report out on the status of that equipment, not just how its health, but what mode is it in? Beth talked about hot, cold, and freeze. Well, now you've got appliances that have all kinds of different modes. Well, from her desk, she could monitor a location and see what mode it's in to make sure that the settings for the serving equipment are actually right. Giving her the power from her desk to be able to monitor all those different sites to ensure that things are being executed properly. And then on the service side is putting the manufacturer closer to the information we have. We're the experts on the equipment itself and how to work on it, putting what we know in the same place where the alerts are so that the person working on it can easily get parts diagrams, videos on how to attack that piece of equipment we've just talked about that's full of solenoids and hot and cold compressors and thermal engines and digital controls. Putting that information in the same place where the alert is helps make even a non-expert an expert. And those are things that we think will help and add a tremendous amount of value.
Is that a large part of the piece, that making a non-expert an expert?
I think so. I think the idea is to keep the equipment working, knowing that experience is definitely going to be a challenge, has been, and is just accelerated. And putting that best practice and knowledge in the hands of anybody. And I also tell our group that if you're having to think about the equipment, our equipment, what setting it's in, and how to adjust it and how to get it ready to go, we're doing it wrong. The technology should allow Beth to be serving the food. She should be worried about what the meals are today, the quality of the food product, making sure that everything's where it needs to be and not worried about the equipment itself.
Thank you. So Beth, from your side of things, from should we say the front line, how do you see that piece of the labor problem with being solved by equipment? I mean, is it working?
It is working. And there's this little miracle thing I called YouTube videos. I mean, literally, it's tying back into what Lloyd's talking about, making the non-expert an expert. I love that. No labor or even skilled labor. The way we solve that is through these YouTube videos that we teach our team everything. You know, whether it's, as Lloyd said, how to repair a piece of equipment or how to restart their point of sale. I mean, it's very simple things that used to take someone, there's 800 square miles in my district. We used to have someone drive out there to realize, oh, it's not turned on. So, the point of sale is not turned on, or this piece of equipment is not turned on. So we can use this technology to help save on tremendous amount of labor that we don't have, how to pan a certain recipe, how to set the piece of equipment or automatically set that piece of equipment where we want it to be, how to troubleshoot before Jerry's team gets out there to see what the problem is with a piece of equipment. It's just amazing. And I think even in the School Nutrition Association, you've seen a couple of YouTube videos come out recently trying to explain to our customer what is going on in the supply chain and the labor market and why you're seeing the things you're seeing in our schools today.
And Tarah, as a consultant, how do these different trends impact on your work as a consultant when you're designing a kitchen?
Well, definitely in equipment choice. So what Beth was talking about, it being able to have some, interconnectivity so that somebody can look at their phone and kind of know what's going on. And Lloyd, it's great to hear what Duke's doing. So now it's not just back of house, it's front of house as well, which really gives the operator control. So much of it from a design point of view right now just comes down to flexibility. And I know that that's a term that almost feels like it's overused at this point. But truly, when we're looking at serving platforms, because of the supply chain and because of the skilled labor shortage we're talking about, giving an operator the flexibility to have a counter that can serve a unique menu or can serve a replicated menu, so that if they just, this is the one menu that we can put out today and they can serve it in 3 different places, it allows them to do that. Or if, they're staffed back up and they have the attendance, they can have, unique offerings at those locations, allowing for those venues to kind of size up and size down as well. Not just because of maybe the ebb and flow of students throughout the day, but also, there might be more students that are taking things to go or instead of sitting down and eating. So again, that all of that, it influences the design and the layout when we're really thinking about how do we make this be successful when we don't really know what the future is going to look like.
Brett, how does that play into how you plan a kitchen, or when you specify how much of it do you now have to think, well, something unexpected might happen?
Yeah, so if anything, this pandemic has taught us that we need to plan for things that we don't even know about. So we got to plan for everything. I mean, we've already been designing kitchens at this point without menus or a food service operator on board. It's a luxury for me when I actually get a menu before I start laying out the kitchen. So the flexibility is extremely important, because you never know if we're ever going to get self-serve salad bars back, or they just disappeared all of a sudden. You never know what you're going to have to plan for in the future, and not only pandemics, but you have a new chef, or they completely change the menu, or you need equipment that will do more than a single thing. There are a couple of pieces here and there that make sense that they only do one function, but for the most part, you need to be able to adapt and overcome just about anything you get thrown at you, and the technology really helps with that. One of the most important things for restaurants and food service operations is consistency. So if you can automate some of those processes, and you can take that requirement for skilled labor, do all the processes that a skilled chef would need to, and still be able to come out with that same consistency. And that's extremely important, especially with a shortage on labor.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested, Lloyd, in your take on that, in terms of your work or your company's work being impacted on this uncertainty that's come from COVID.
So that's a good question. I keep hearing, flexible merchandising and things that get hot and cold, and having the flexibility to adapt. We developed the first hot frost merchandiser over 15 years ago. The idea being that same appliance can be frost or heated. I would say just about every project we build today or design today has that flexibility built in, because you just have to. So where the technology helps us is now we've had a lot of complexity on how to operate it. Its modes, its times of getting ready for service. The technology that's available, we can make those things easier, that transition easy to do between breakfast and lunch, or today's menu and tomorrow's menu. And I think these tools just accelerate that flexibility.
Beth, can you outline some of the changes you've had to implement from the school's point of view as a result of the pandemic?
It's not very, it's definitely not very sexy. I'm always about, you eat with your eyes and the visual, and Lloyd's heard me say this, Tarah's heard me say this. I want sophisticated looking equipment. I want it to function the way it should, but I want even my kindergartners to come into the dining room and just have this wow experience, and it be their favorite part of their day. So I'm really into the visual of what the kids see when they come in. And during the pandemic, we're just trying to hold it together. I mean, everything has to be prepackaged. We can't find anything. We thought we were going to get to move away from that this year. I thought last year was bad. This is a nightmare. I mean, we have to guess every single day what we're going to serve, because we don't know what came in on the supply chain. We have to shift our staff around and move and try to get at least 1 or 2 bodies at every site. And therefore, everything has to be prepackaged. So there's no more oh, what would we like our menu to be, or what would we like to serve today? It's, this is what we've got today. Can we pull this together and make it work? And then all that customer relation that goes around that. You know, our average customer doesn't understand what we're going through. Our teachers don't understand what we're going through. And we're just literally trying to hold it together right now. So I know that's probably not the positive answer you wanted to hear, but it is the truth of what we're facing within the K-12 world. And it's across the country. It's not just in Jeffco. I hear it from every one of my colleagues. And there's shortage of supplies everywhere we look.
I guess it means that it's more important than ever to have good, close working relationships with the manufacturers, with the consultants, to make sure that you can all pull it together. Tarah, just reflecting on what Beth just said, what does that mean for your work? I guess this is for Brett as well, actually. I mean, what does it mean for your work as a consultant that you've got the schools living through a nightmare and they'll be looking to you to say, how are we going to do this? How has it changed your work?
I just want to say kudos to Beth and all the other operators. It is such a challenging time right now. And as you said, everyone thought it was just going to be a year, and here we are going into year two. And it's not just K through 12, it's in all market segments right now. I think K through 12 is maybe feeling it a bit more, but everyone's dealing with it. In our work, it really is just helping talk through multiple scenarios, you know, when looking at a design and thinking about, okay, if you do have, you know, if you are purchasing and, you know, something is available, you know, maybe you over purchase so that you can at least have it on, you know, have it available for future meals. And so then it changes, you know, sizing of storage a little bit, or maybe you have to buy things that are pre-cut and you can't, you know, prep them on site. So thinking about different storage requirements or layouts for that. You know, it's just helping walk through those scenarios. And again, to me, it's, you know, to come back to technology, it's, well, again, even more reason for us to think through how, you know, what technology is going to help solve issues for us, that we can have people where they need to be and have people focus on what they need to focus on in order to have the operation up and running.
And Brett, do you have anything to add to that?
Like Tarah said, it's not just K through 12 and food supply. It's actually raw materials for the equipment. So some of the projects we're working on, everything right now, it's like everybody's trying to play catch up, building these new projects from when we were all kind of locked down from COVID. Well, the problem is they're fast tracking these projects and they can't get equipment. I mean, it's across the board. You know, a lot of times we have to plan for, maybe we'll put a little bit of this in now and they can kind of halfway operate. And then once the rest of the supply chain fills their orders, you know, they can build out the rest of the project. So that's a huge issue right now across the board.
So LLoyd, shifting the focus to connectivity, what does it bring to the table?
It creates a system, right? So in our case on serving, I mentioned, you know, a small serving system might have 12 appliances, if you count lighting and heats and overhead heat, et cetera, you know, up to 50 to 75 appliances. Technology allows us to create them and combine them as a system and not just individual appliances. So imagine in Beth's case, if you're in a servery and you've got the hot food counter, you've got heat lamps, lights, hot wells that could be hot, cold, frozen, whatever combination, but being able to walk up and just turn the whole thing on with one button, all of it, not individual pieces. And then at the end of service, one button, turn them all off. Just making those things more as a system rather than individual components helps a lot as far as the operations go. You can roll all that up into the system, the counter, up to a school, up to a school district with multiple schools and see all of that from a mobile app in a remote location or from the cloud. I mean, technology allows all of that power. You can use as much or as little as you want. You don't have to. I mean, it could be just like before, you turn on that well number 1 and turn on that well number 2. As long as you can do that, that's fine. But if you're ready to leverage that power that technology allows, that's where things start to accelerate pretty quickly and the advantages grow fast.
As an operator, Beth, I mean, how transformative is the connected equipment?
Oh, I love it. I could sit and talk to Lloyd all day long. You know, he's got this mind that's way out there. And I'm like, oh, yeah, Lloyd, that would be so cool. You know, it's just sitting here listening to his comment. You know, my day looks like, okay, let's see how we're going to staff. Let's, well, maybe we can get someone here, but they're going to be an hour later. Let's do this. If I have the ability to turn that equipment on, because the minute you walk in a kitchen, the first thing you do, let's get the power up, let's get everything up, running, everything on. If I have that ability to do it remotely and to shut it off, in sometimes emergency situations that happen at schools, unfortunately, we have more than we need. That kind of control is just incredible. I have to say that you can not only have things at your fingertips to help with your operation, but you can probably go in and help save on some of your energy costs, and just that management of energy, I think, is an incredible opportunity for us. So I love that thought.
We haven't mentioned sustainability, but obviously that comes into it for all of you. I'm sure it's got to be central to what all of you do now. How do you see the role of sustainability, Lloyd, from the manufacturing perspective when you come up with new equipment and new solutions?
For our serving systems, the average life is for especially K through 12, 20 to 30 years. We still have schools that Beth and I worked on probably 15 years ago, still in use. So future proofing it is critical so that you don't have to cut it apart, tear it out and throw it away. It's adaptable you can flash the firmware and add features. It's basically it's always going to be able to be refreshed. So you don't have to replace those appliances. Going back to her point about service, what we see is the ability to, let's say you start serving at 8, you set the line up at 7:30 a.m., have the appliances know when to be ready and let them figure out when they need to turn on to be ready, preheat time that's required and so on. And so that they don't even have to think about it or turn it on when they first walk in at 6 a.m. and waste all the power for the hour and a half that the appliance didn't need to be running. And then as well as, at the end of service, it's a scheduled time, when it is, have it shut off automatically so you don't have any waste there. Those are just some of the ways I see how sustainability can be supported by tech.
And where is that going? Just to follow on from that, what do you see next for the sustainability point of view?
As far as appliances go, I see a lot of appliances without water, a lot of appliances with no water, no drains, waterless heat wells, waterless hot frost plates that you can serve right on the platform without having to have any sort of drain required. I see not only does it save on the water and the waste of the water, but also saves in the utility costs of bringing the water and the drain to the location. In many cases, they aren't there. So not needing it, I think you need it less than you ever needed it.
And on maintenance, every time you mention a piece of equipment to me, if it's got water, I know it's got higher maintenance on it and it's going to break. So it's huge.
Brett, so as a consultant, I'm not going to ask you if sustainability is important because I know it is, but how big a part does it play when you design a kitchen, when you specify equipment? How much do you actually think about it, and how much is it a requirement from the client?
This day and age, yes, especially with LEED and Energy Star and Department of Energy regulations come out there. whether we want to or not, we're being forced to be more efficient. Technology helps that, turning compressors on and off for walk-ins and self-modulating fans and just overall energy reduction in general. The more we can think about that, the better off everyone is, because, the climate change right now is a huge deal. Whether or not the client is interested in it, we are, in our designs, are automatically looking for those types of equipment, just because if for whatever reason midway through the project they have a change of heart, we end up having to redesign everything. So kind of our basis of design is always going to be as energy efficient as possible.
Okay. And Tarah, do you have anything to add to that?
I just think at this point, incorporating elements of water efficiency, energy efficiency, waste reduction is just good design. It just needs to be a conversation for every project. And there's a big push towards electrification in certain states and regions of the country. And so that elevates the conversation even more. But to go back to what Lloyd said about I'm really excited about what you're talking about for front of house equipment. And, something that we've been keeping an eye on is just that interconnected kitchen you're talking about. But so much of the focus has been back of house, not thinking about the front of house serving counters. But as it moves forward, it's just going to allow operators to make better decisions. And that is going to ultimately help them use less energy, produce less food waste, right? Size the kitchen, staff the kitchen appropriately, just because to have all that data at your fingertips is just going to be immensely helpful. So looking forward now to seeing back of house and front of house as a part of that conversation.
Lloyd, how far advanced is that technology that Tarah is so excited about?
Well, so it's funny you ask. Beth's getting one right at the first of the year. So December, January will be our first early adopters. And, what we feel like, we've been working on this for 2 years, but the idea is to convert to a platform that's digital instead of analog. So we're not doing knobs and lights and switches, and add a certain amount of value in the beginning, knowing we can continue now, that platform can support value for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So I've often said it's no longer, what can we do? It's what should we do? It becomes a platform that can support whatever Beth comes to us in a year and 2 years from now and says, wouldn't it be nice if? And we don't have to change anything. The appliance is ready to go. So for us, like I said, we've been working on it for a couple of years now, and we're building the first prototypes or first early adopters 3 months. Exciting
stuff. I think what would be quite nice to finish off is maybe if you can look ahead to what you'd like to see next. So what's on the wish list, but also where do you think it is heading? What's going to be the next game changer? If I can start with you, Beth.
Well, as we've just talked about, I'm very excited about this opportunity. When you look at it on a scale of 1, you get very excited, but then it becomes daunting when you think, I need to get it into 150 sites. So, I think some of the biggest challenges, and I'm sure big restaurant chains deal with the same thing, is it takes a long time to get even some of your operations moving in that very forward thinking of technology. So where I'd love to be thinking what's next, but what's next is let's get all of my kitchens up to operating at that level is probably what's next for me.
Brett, what about you? Where do you see it heading?
You ever seen the Jetsons? They have that little microwave or whatever type oven where they put the puck in there, close the door, hit a couple of buttons, and they open it and it's a full pizza. While it may seem silly, that a lot of sci-fi movies and crazy concepts actually drive the technology. And they're able to prove that some of that stuff is actually doable. And so while we obviously have quite a long time before that happens, I do think at some point we're still headed that direction. And, I'm excited because I'm technology driven. So I like to learn about all of it. So I don't think it's too far fetched to say the sky's the limit as far as that goes.
Okay. Tarah?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready for 3D printed food just yet, but I think with all that we're talking about, the appliances that can give you information and give you data, at least right now, it just feels like there's so many systems. So it feels really challenging for operators to try to manage that, even if you look at the mobile ordering systems and then the KDS back of house information they have. And then I'm looking forward to when it's all nicely packaged in a single system or in systems that talk to each other, so that, an operator can just look at their phone and they have all that information that we're talking about related to sustainability, related to service, related to their customers. So that might be a bit down the road, but I think that is ultimately where it's headed.
Lloyd?
So, my background, I've been making equipment and designing serving systems for about 20 years now. But before that, I was a chef. And I went to the Culinary Institute. For me, the passion is around the food. Equipment manufacturers tend to be very proud of their equipment and how it works and how to operate it and the flexibility and so on. For me, it's still about the food. And so I believe that the technology that where we're headed is that we'll have the ability to let the food drive the equipment. Meaning, for example, when you set a hot food well, low, medium, high, 0 through 10, whatever it is, there is a hope that the food is actually at its optimal temperature, that it's being served at the right temperature for its best quality, safest product, et cetera. But it's just a hope. Why not have the food drive the appliance, the food temp itself drive the appliance? HACCP is a thing that just comes along for the ride. We're calculating temperatures and time and you get all that. But let's say your mac and cheese you want served at 160, held and served at 165. Have it drive the well. And the well does low, medium, or high, or any combination thereof it needs to keep it at 165. But the tech allows us, the communication, the systems allow us to make that leap to where now the food's driving the equipment instead of the other way around. That's where I think we should go.
So clearly, plenty of challenges in institutional food service, but also lots of solutions coming in the form of new technology. So thanks to all of you. Thanks to Tarah, Beth, Brett and Lloyd for taking part in this session. And thanks to Duke Manufacturing for sponsoring the panel session.
All right. Thanks, everyone.